or whatever time of day you may be watching this. It says growing up in the wilds of suburbia, and I am your host, Sir Chad Everett Broshears. Today I am talking about a maturity path. This is the most potent place to create any relationship from, specifically in romantic relationships. Reason for this particular is, if you think about in relationships, we seem to feel more and more intimately connected with whoever we're in that relationship with, that romantic relationship with. We feel more and more intimately connected by how deep we can be ourselves with that person. So, the goofier you can be, if you will, the more vulnerable, the more just raw that you can be with that other person, and having them accept you makes you feel more and more loved, and or loving yourself, and or them loving you and accepted. My definition of love is acceptance. So it resonates really well with me. As they accept me, the more I accept them, the more I accept that I'm being myself with them, the more I feel that sensation of love. If you think about it, it's when's the last time you danced in your car? Sang music and just belted out, no matter how bad of a singer you are. Like in my instance, I am not a good singer. I'm actually kind of horrific, and it could be used as a psyops if the military ever were to hear me singing. But when's the last time you really just let yourself out? We all get into the rut of whatever our days require. We get into these patterns where we just feel like we're cooped up, or we lack our self-expression, and then we're just kind of almost, we start feeling frustrated, and it's hard to put our finger on why. And nearly every time that I've felt frustrated and found it really hard to put my finger on why, I would find out that it was that I was lacking self-expression. Now, that may not necessarily be the entire cause, but it definitely be a part of it. And I find myself feeling more satisfied and less frustrated simply by getting and express myself. So with that, it's blatantly apparent to me that the more I can just be who I feel like being at that time, unabated by the fear, loss, to upset the other person, whatever, but not having those kind of concerns, I've always felt more connected, because I'm more connected with myself, therefore I'm more connected with that person. So with that, that's what I've recognized in the process of being able to truly experience the other person, because that brings that love factor in. So the maturity aspect of it is the part of being able to express yourself and say, you know what, these are the goals that I have in life. This is what I want to experience. Therefore, because of that, I'm letting you know so that I'm not restricted in my process. So when you get with a partner, I apologize here about kind of slightly losing my track, as I have a rather aggressive driver deciding to kind of buzz around like a bee at a picnic. But yeah, so to be able to fully express yourself, the more you feel like you're loved, and the more you can accept it when you express yourself, the more you feel like you're loved. personal experiences where you just do and say the goofiest things, and the other person plays along with you, and is there. It doesn't sit there overly reserved and seeming critical of you and that, but actually plays with you, and they be a romantic partner. You feel more and more accepted, and then therefore you feel more and more loved by that person. And it seems to add to the chemistry. So the reason why I feel that the maturity path is the most potent place you can be is, have you had an experience for the first time with somebody, and from that experience you feel that you've evolved yourself, you've developed, you've grown, whatever direction. It doesn't have to be one of the things like finance, stuff like that. It could be you went skydiving with somebody and it's the first time, and that person be a romantic partner. Forever, that person, when you think about skydiving, will be encoded into that event. So if you want to create greater connections in life and even deeper connections with yourself, and possibly get to that point where you have that soul bonding that we all seem to yearn for, if you want to get to that point, start from the very beginning and understand what you want to develop and what you want to experience in life. I want to, say I want to run a successful company and make $1 million a year. Well, that's a great declaration. What do you know about doing that? How mature are you in that process to be able to take yourself from where you currently are, possibly being, a regular employee someplace, working for a company, and you're making, maybe $35,000 to $40,000 a year. You're not mature enough to make $1 million yet. Now, it's not mature enough about whether or not you know how to act like an adult in the sense of being serious or stoic or something. I don't mean that. I mean that your lack of exposure means a lack of maturity in that area. Now you can start looking for the pieces, the details necessary to be able to accumulate that opportunity, so that you develop yourself into the person that makes $1 million a year. But you also need to understand what kind of product. You have to go through the details necessary. But are you doing it alone, or are you doing it with a partner? And if you're doing it with a partner, do they know you're doing it? And if they do know you're doing it, do they know the details about how you're trying to do it? If you're going to school, do they know that? And if they do know that, are they supportive of you going to school? And if they are supportive of you going to school, to what degree are they supportive? Are they adding, let's say they cook dinner because now you're not able to be there to cook dinner, and that's part of the agreement to help you develop into that. So you see the path of maturity, or the maturity path, that's what it does. You first have to understand what you want to experience. And then from there, you share that with your partner. And for every step of the way, you get to experience the process of maturing yourself into that. The other person gets an experience as well. The beautiful thing about it is that every time you have one of those experiences that move you forward, it bonds you more, or it creates more of an opportunity to bond you to that person, which means therefore you're feeling more and more loved, and you're feeling like you're creating a life partner. And with hopes that the chemistry, that the totality of each of you, both of you, is such that it creates more of the soul bonding. Now, if you're not familiar with soul bonding, that is in a previous episode as well. You have to go back and watch it. It's within the last couple of weeks that I made it. And I can also expand further if you comment in the comment section. Just let me know that's what you want me to further dig into. But for now, that's a beautiful piece. If you can get to that point, soul bonding is you'll never forget the person ever. That person will always be a part of who you are, whether they're with you or not. Sometimes circumstances takes them out of your life. There's all kinds of circumstances that can do that, but your life doesn't stop. You evolve, right? You're a phoenix that evolves to the next level. But if you're just having relationships for superficial values, there's nothing wrong with that. That's where you're at. I choose to have emotional bonding in my relationships, all of them, including my romantic ones. I want that. That is a major piece of what that I choose. It's easy to go off and just have the superficial experience of sex with somebody and make it like a transactional experience, I don't like those. They to me, it causes me a visceral type of response, and I'm not a comfortable one at all. Um, that's not where I am at this stage of development, and I never really have been at that stage of development. Something that I just don't do. It's not my preference. But there's people that do, and there's reasons for that. And if you go into the hierarchy of needs, it'll give you more of an insight to why somebody would do such a thing. It doesn't mean that they're wrong, they're bad people, or anything like that. It's just where they are with their needs. So if you want to create a deeper connection with people, understand what you want to experience, share that with the person that you're in a partnership with, and to see where they can contribute to it. It doesn't mean at that moment when you guys sit down and you have that conversation that person's going to say, hey, I am completely aware of how to support you. I've never experienced that option myself. Now, some areas, yes, I've experienced, I know how to support this. And other areas, it is, we will figure it out. That was one of the beautiful things about my previous ex, is that was our regular conversation. We will figure this out. Up until the breakup, that was not a we will figure this out. It was a guillotine. But still, it's just all growth. So, and to look at how I can become better and how my partner can become better. So the maturity path is significant. You are seeking out a way of experiencing things in life that exceed just the moment. Going to a movie, wonderful. That's a quality time thing. So you need to have a balance that meets your goals and your character. So with that, when you put that out there, that be the case at what you're looking for, that you want to experience whatever it is you want to experience, you'll also know the degree of your partner's interest in your long term. And you may be able to discover that person isn't interested in long term, they just like what's occurring now. And with that, you can do what you want with that. You may find that person, that is what you want. You just want that at that moment, or you want to experience something with them specific. And it could be anything. This is also to give this a little bit more value in the sense of partner selection. Ask yourself with every partner that you meet or that you're considering is, do I want to own this person or do I want to experience this person? Now, big differences in simplistic sounding words. To own the person means that you will create restrictions on their life that reduce their abilities to be able to self-express overall. To experience this person would be, I'm going to be there to experience the things you experience without stopping you. And it doesn't mean, complete hedonism or anything like that. That's a starting question. Do I want to own this person or do I want to experience this person? And nearly all relationships that I've observed, unfortunately, seem to be more along the lines of ownership. Now, of course, there is the perspective that I have on things that come from the lens of the worldviews that I have, but I'm also looking at significant details that say something more than what the person's willing to say. Because if you tell somebody, I want to own this person, well, that sounds a little domineering and potentially dangerous and emotionally unhealthy, depending on the circumstances, right? But overall, though, that's typically not the kind of conversation you're willing to speak openly. But your behaviors may say otherwise. I don't like when you do this, so I'm going to punish you by removing emotion or lash out at you and verbally abuse you or emotionally abuse you or whatever it may be, or even in some instances physically. That's an ownership type of behavior. Now, but if I want to experience this person it's like being on the Nature Channel and watching animals in the wild, but you are actively engaged. Now, with that comes the potential of harm, because you can feel, hey, I'm connected and I'm attached, that this person be a certain way and returns the types of emotions that I would like to experience, but you're not controlling any of that. You're just going to let that type of thing happen. And the hopes are for you that that actually is what happens. It's not a guarantee, though. And that's part of the joy of it, is that you can't guarantee it, which means you have less control than you might want. But the beautiful thing about a little less control than what you might want is that ultimately there brings the excitement that you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. So, do you want to own the person, or do you want to experience the person? And then from there, if you want to own the person, that's a conversation to have, right? There are some relationships that are specifically built that way. There are lifestyles that work like that, and there's other ones that don't. And the majority of them don't. I don't want you to put restrictions on my life solely because you're in it, so that I have you in it, and therefore I will do as you say. That is an agreement, but that is not a balanced agreement for a lot of people. But then again, when you take on mentorship, that is what you take on with mentorship. But it's not under the ridiculous restrictions. It's through discipline and things like that, because you can have a mentorship inside of a romantic relationship. Actually, that's all of the types that I've ever had, at least in my adult life, has always had there was a mentorship experience in it, but it wasn't like you're hiring me. It was part of being involved with me, because I'm so geared towards growth and development. So that was just a consequence of relationship with me. But I don't speak down to somebody. I don't do anything like that. It's more like a parent would do. At times, with somebody who's less mature, is let them, experience things and be there to support them, whatever that is. You don't just wait for the successes, then you cheer it on. You're there also to help understand failures in order to progress forward. And it's also not a pity party on the failure part. You don't pity party that. Sometimes you give them a little because that's expected, and it's socially what we've been conditioned for. But for me, I try moving the person that I'm with away from the pity party conversation, because to me it's sticky, and it becomes a dramatic conversation that becomes drama, and before you know it, it can become disenchanting and demotivating. So, but when you understand the kind of person that you're with, what you want to accomplish in life as far as your goals, and then your maturity path with your partner, then you can make a more powerful relationship, something that's more meaningful than, hey, we spend time together, we like to laugh and joke together, sex is amazing. You have those pieces, but you don't have the other things, and you're hoping that life just kind of happens around you, or you're doing your own thing, and the other person isn't a part of that process. Now, doesn't mean you become dependent on the person. That is not at all what I'm saying. It's just that you're having the other person become part of the contribution of your development. So instead of a relationship that's just basic, I prefer those types of relationships where you can grow together, because they become greatly meaningful, and you create a different worldview because you have another perspective of somebody who truly means something deep to you. So you can see the world through their lens and experience the world through their lens. And that's part of what I mean by I want to experience you, is that you're helping me experience myself as well. With that, I will happily go further into this subject, because I think it's a huge value, and it's the details that truly matter in relationships, specifically in romantic relationships. These are the kind of conversations that make incredibly meaningful experiences. Until next time, I am your host, Sir Chad Everett Broshears. This is Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia, creating a powerful life, the one you want to live in, the one you're invoked to live in, is not always easy. Actually, it's often hard, but it is absolutely worth it. So with that, stick with me, and I'll catch you next time. See ya.